Opossum numbers in 2009 were estimated at 30 million. Scientists can't hazard a guess at how many rats there are. So far, the government has committed only a few tens of millions of dollars toward the project, which is estimated to cost billions. Officials say more money will come from the local authorities and philanthropists. Many aren't waiting for that. Along a popular forest trail, a 10-minute drive from the bustle of central Wellington, Jonathan Moles takes breaks from his run to clamber up banks and check out rat traps. He's one of 50 volunteer trappers who incorporate pest control into their regular workouts at the Pole Hill Reserve. Paul Ward, who leads the volunteer group, lists ways that birds have seeped into the culture, from the country's music awards that are named after the boisterous tui, the nickname for a New Zealander, kiwi. Paul?
Well, it's 10:20, and we'll switch over to the local news. Governor Pete Ricketts on Tuesday stood with a Mexican trade delegation and American grain industry leaders to emphasize the importance of the soon-to-be renegotiated North American Free Trade Agreement. Mexico is Nebraska's largest export market for corn, dairy, sugar, and sweeteners, and second largest market for soybeans, wheat, sorghum, and distillers grain. All of this combined accounts for thousands of Nebraska jobs, Ricketts said. It's important future negotiations don't damage that trade relationship, he said. President Donald Trump has repeatedly bashed the United States 20-year-old agreement with Canada and Mexico, pledging on the campaign trail to rip it apart as part of his promise to bring manufacturing jobs back to ailing Rust Belt states. Trump has since walked back from his pledge to terminate NAFTA in favor of reworking it. Ricketts warned that Trump's rhetoric is putting billions of dollars in trade that support 34,000 Nebraska jobs at risk. That impacts actual families here in this state, Ricketts said. Mexican economy minister this week warned Mexico would walk away from the negotiating table if met with threats of tariffs or demands for quotas. Planning for that possibility, Mexican trade officials and grain buyers have begun exploring new partnerships with Brazil and Argentina. The 5-member Mexican industry group, which represents 80% of Mexico's grain demand, came to the United States to express their concerns with Trump's rhetoric, urge sensitivity, and tell the United States not to take their business for granted, said Felipe Basarte, purchasing manager for Coestro State Cattle Union and a representative of the Mexican National Feed Association, CONAFAB. The United States needs us as buyers, and we need United States grain, Basarte said. Mexico has been a loyal customer with U.S. grain, enjoying 99% market share, but Trump's aggression toward NAFTA has cracked that loyalty, said Ryan Lagreen, a U.S. Grains Council director based in Mexico. With some of the things that have been said, we've opened a door that has never been opened before, he said. Kelly Brunkart, executive director of the Nebraska Corn Board, echoed that concern over the prospect of customers slipping away. The United States has long held a competitive advantage over Brazil because of its reliable rail and shipping routes, but that might not always be the case, he said. If they start talking about going to Brazil, it's only a matter of time before Brazil builds out their infrastructure and is competitive to the advantages we've already witnessing, Brunkart said. Before and after the governor's news conference, the Mexican trade group spoke with farmers and politicians during a series of meetings in Nebraska, including a roundtable conversation at the Farmers Cooperative in Dorchester. The group planned to fly to Washington on Wednesday for a slate of meetings with national politicians and trade officials. The United States in 2016 exported 523.5 million bushels of corn to Mexico, valued at $2.5 billion, as well as exporting 1.9 million metric tons of distillers' dried grains and a byproduct of ethanol. Rick?
Prosecution, Gollier sent confession via emails. For 3 years, authorities couldn't find any trace of Carrie Farber after she disappeared in November 2012. Then gruesome details of her alleged slaying emerged in emails purportedly sent to Shannon Gollier from Amy Flora. I attacked her with a knife. I stabbed her 3 to 4 times in the chest and stomach area. I took her out and burned her. I stuffed her body in a garbage bag with crap. An email said in December 2015. I drove Carrie out to the woods. She was still begging for her life, crying, wanting me to let her go, another stated in February 2016. After I killed Carrie, I contacted her mom, Nancy, pretending to be Carrie. Said another days later, prosecutors argue that no matter what name is on the messages, they are a confession from Gollier, who they say actually sent the emails in an attempt to pin the slaying on Flora. They plan to introduce evidence that will link Gollier to a fake Flora email account and more than 20 others. Farber's body has never been found. Gollier, 41, is charged with first-degree murder in connection with Farber's alleged killing. She also is charged with second-degree arson, accused of setting fire to her own home. Douglas County District Judge Timothy Burns will decide whether to acquit Gollier or to find her guilty. Farber has not been seen or heard from since November 13, 2012. The 5th day of trial on Tuesday mostly consisted of testimony from Flora, who has 2 children with David Krupa. Krupa, who dated Gollier off and on for years, had been seeing Farber for 2 weeks when she went missing. Afterward, he received more than 12,000 emails purporting to be from Farber, he testified Monday. Flora read about 13 emails that were sent from a Hotmail account purporting to be hers. She testified that she did not send any of the emails. As Flora read aloud the jarring details of Farber's possible final moments, more than a dozen relatives and friends of Farber's began to weep. Nancy Rainey, Farber's mother, started to sob, her head bowed. Farber's son Max wiped away tears with a tissue. I even went out to Carrie's place, got some of Carrie's clothes and other things to make it look like she ran away, Flora read from an email sent in February 2016. Gollier's lawyer, James Martin Davis, argued that the emails didn't connect any wrongdoing to his client. The emails are just words, and they don't prove that a slaying actually happened, or that it occurred in the way the message is described, he argued. Again, this is a fantasy, true? Davis asked Florida. It's a mind-numbing charade. Wouldn't you agree with me? And you got caught up in the middle of it. Gollier had also accused Flora of shooting her at Big Lake Park in North Council Bluffs in December 2015. Flora told police she was at home in her pajamas with her young son when the shooting occurred. I was in shock. I didn't expect police at my door with guns pointing at me, she testified, adding that she didn't own any firearms. Authorities determined that the allegations were unfounded, and prosecutors alleged that Gollier shot herself with a gun and she took it from Krupa's closet. Authorities were able to corroborate at least 2 details from the Flora emails. Paul?
In the sweltering sun at noon Tuesday, Lincoln Assistant Police Chief Brian Jackson and Lancaster County Sheriff Terry Wagner slowly read the names of 9 law enforcement officers who have died in the line of duty. The annual Law Enforcement Memorial during National Police Week honors those who have died. Keynote speakers were Sergeant Brad Junker, a nearly 12-year veteran in the Education and Personnel Department, and Officer Angela Sands, a 5-year veteran who will begin her duties as Public Information Officer of LPD this week. Junker spoke directly to officers in Lincoln and surrounding areas, reminding them the work of an officer doesn't just matter when it happens in public, but also when it happens behind closed doors. He said officers should take the chance to be a hero when no one is looking, to sweat and bleed alone in the dark. Just when you think you've given enough, someone out there has given more, he said. Their words likely hit close to home. On November 29, 2015, Sands and former LPD officer Matthew Gilliland were injured in a shooting after Junker stopped to investigate a suspicious person in a vehicle. Zachary Grigsby shot Gilligan in the arm and assaulted Sands during a struggle as Junker tried to arrest him. Grigsby pulled a gun, began firing, and was ultimately killed by gunfire from two of the officers. To the families of those who have fallen, Jackson said, they will not be forgotten. National Police Week serves as a time of reflection, he said. We drape our badges too often. The law enforcement officers honored during the ceremony in the year they died: Captain Charles E. Hall, 1917, Special Duty Patrolman Marion F. Marshall, 1932, Officer Richard E. Layden, 1949, Deputy Sheriff William D. Johnson, 1959, Detective Frank H. Shupka, 1966, Detective Paul B. Whitehead, 1967, Motorcycle Officer George W. Walter, 1968, Deputy Sheriff Franklin R. Furr, 1973, and Deputy Sheriff Craig D. Dodge, 1987. Rick?
Bond issue could be the biggest yet. The Elkhorn School District is laying the groundwork for another bond issue to accommodate the district's rapid enrollment growth. With an early cost estimate upward of $130 million, the bond issue could be the largest in Elkhorn's history, eclipsing the district's $96 million bond issue in 2006. The district wants to build a third high school, 2 more elementary schools, in addition to 3 middle schools. The Elkhorn district counts nearly 8,400 students in grades K through 12, so it's smaller than districts like Omaha, Lincoln, Millard, and Papillion and La Vista. But if enrollment trends continue over the next 3 to 5 years, the district is poised to move from being the 7th largest school district in Nebraska to the 5th largest, surpassing Grand Island and Bellevue, said Elkhorn Superintendent Steve Baker. Enrollment increased 7.3% this year, and with new housing development springing up, Elkhorn administrators don't expect the wave of new students to slow anytime soon. Several middle schools are starting to feel stretched, and a third high school would keep numbers down at Elkhorn and Elkhorn South high schools, they said. In my communication with the community, when it comes to talking about a third high school, I don't get any reaction. No surprise, no shock, Becker said. You just have to drive through Elkhorn and you see the growth. Nothing is set in stone, but administrators and board members have been drafting a list of potential construction projects and needed renovations. The district has one of the highest bond levies in the state, lower than only Gretna and Bennington. The soonest voters might see a bond issue on the ballot would be the spring of 2018, Baker said. The nice thing is doing a bond issue is not new to us, Baker said. We've done 10 since 1992. We know how to do them. I believe we have a proven track record with our community. The property valuation growth in Elkhorn has slowed somewhat since the days of double-digit increases, and another bond issue would raise taxes again. Preliminary projections show the district selling bonds over a series of 4 years. If a bond issue is approved in 2018, Elkhorn's bond levy could increase by several cents per year, up to an estimated 8 cents by the 2020-2021 school year. School officials said they tried to spread out tax increases over several years to lessen any sticker shock. Paul?
An expansive line of thunderstorms stretching across the Great Plains dropped golf-sized hail in Lincoln and down trees with hurricane force winds in Omaha Tuesday night. At 8 p.m., the specter of severe storms remained in southwest Lancaster County as the stretch continued to move northeast, and National Weather Service officials kept the area in a thunderstorm watch until midnight. Emergency crews by then had responded to a handful of reports of downed wires and tree limbs blocking streets. The first wave of severe storms reached Lincoln by 6 p.m. By 6:30 p.m., the line of severe storms stretched from near Omaha into Kansas. In southeast Lincoln, a lightning strike blew the siding and bricks off the exterior of a side of a home, Lincoln Fire and Rescue crews reported. Golf ball-sized hail was reported near Waverly. National Weather Service staff in Valley reported 85-mile-an-hour winds, and a 10 residents shared photos of split trees. Earlier Tuesday, the Weather Service said southeast Nebraska was at an enhanced risk for severe weather with damaging winds of 60 to 80 miles per hour and large hail are primary threats in the Lincoln area. Based on the forecast, the Nebraska School Activities Association moved earlier in the day to postpone championship matches in the girls' soccer tournament scheduled in Omaha. The matches will now be Wednesday, when severe storms are also possible. That's interesting. The storms on Tuesday stretched from central Texas through Oklahoma, Kansas, and Nebraska, and into Iowa. Forecasters predicted a wet start to Wednesday for Lincoln with showers and thunderstorms in the morning. National Weather Service meteorologists expect the chance of storms may linger into Wednesday afternoon and evening. Expected to be much cooler with a high of 72 degrees. Rick?
Tax increment funding for rural housing falls to filibuster from Lincoln. Opponents of legislation to expand the use of tax increment financing for rural housing construction narrowly defeated the measure Tuesday, one day after it had won initial approval. Legislative Bill 496 had strong support in the legislature, but it fell one vote short of the 33 votes needed to overcome a filibuster. On Monday, supporters beat the delay tactic, and the bill easily advanced on a vote of 31 to 8. State Senator John Stenner of Gering, the sponsor of the bill, said Tuesday that he thinks some of his colleagues simply didn't understand how difficult it can be to build affordable housing in smaller communities. He will probably introduce the measure again next year, he added. It really saddens me to hear some of the commentary and perversion of the facts, Stenner said. On Tuesday's filibuster vote, the bill gained support from a couple of senators who abstained or were absent Monday, but it lost the votes of 3 senators who had supported it the day before: Joni Albrecht of Thurston, Bruce Bosselman of Brainerd, and Rob Clements of Elmwood. Albrecht said Tuesday that she supports efforts to build more rural housing, but grew uncomfortable with a provision in the bill that would have allowed cities with populations of up to 100,000 to use the TIF program. She also did not like that supporters of the bill were trying to add amendments when it came up again Tuesday. TIF is a subsidy that allows a municipal government to divert increased property tax revenue generated by a development to pay for the public infrastructure associated with it. The increased tax funds generated by a new building, for example, would pay for improvements to nearby streets, sidewalks, or storm sewers. For a period of up to 15 years, the extra tax revenue generated by the new buildings is directed to pay off the project cost, rather than going to taxing authorities such as schools, cities, and natural resources districts. Senator Mike Groen of North Platte, who led the filibuster, said TIF was intended to generate renewal of substandard or blighted urban areas, not help housing developers or builders turn a profit. Supporters said TIF would help lessen the risk that developers and contractors face when trying to build homes in smaller communities. The bill would have excluded Lincoln and Omaha from using TIF for housing developments. At one point during Tuesday's debate, Stenner told Groen that the North Platte Area Chamber of Commerce and Development had emailed saying its members strongly supported the bill. Blurting an abbreviation for an expletive, Groen replied that he did not care what the largest chamber in his legislative district thought. They didn't elect me, he said. Paul?
Last May, Diane Gonzalez gave to Lincoln. She joined 6,299 like-minded citizens who opened their wallets to benefit the city's nonprofits to the tidy and somewhat astounding sum of $3.1 million. It wasn't even a record. But it was close, said Barbara Bartel, the president of the Lincoln Community Foundation. Last year, we had that horrible storm right in the middle of the afternoon, Bartel said. We were so thankful to get to 3.1 million. Thursday is the 6th annual Give to Lincoln Day hosted by the foundation, which will boost the effort with $350,000 in matching funds given by a variety of supporters of the cause. That is a record, up $50,000 from last year's match. The idea for a citywide donation day was inspired by a national conference that foundation staff attended in 2012. Rick?
How to protest property tax valuations in Douglas County. With the hubbub over Douglas County property tax valuations this spring, county officials want to make sure taxpayers know the procedures for protesting their valuations. County Board Chairwoman Mary Ann Borgeson, County Clerk Dan Esch, and Assistant County Administrator Catherine Hall explained the process Tuesday. The commissioners had heard from more people than usual, Esch said, because the protest period is coming up. Commissioner Borgeson just wanted to get the word out. The assessor's office will mail out notices by the end of May to all taxpayers whose property valuations changed for 2017. The valuations can also be seen now on the assessor's office website, www.dcassessor.org. Property owners can protest even if their valuation didn't change this year. Protests can be filed from June 1st to June 30th. It can be done online at www.boardofelqualization.org or by mail. People can print the forms from the website or pick them up at the Douglas County Clerk's office at 1819 Farnham Street. If they don't have internet access or the ability to go to the office, the clerk's office will mail them a copy. The officials encourage property owners to file their protests early and online. Protests must be received online or in person by 5 p.m. on June 30th. If mailed, they must be postmarked by June 30th. Taxpayers are required to submit only the protest form, but people may submit supporting documents as pictures of their property, information about sales of comparable properties, or a copy of a recent appraisal. Just because you submit supporting documents, it doesn't mean you're going to change your values, but it's generally the kind of information the referees like to see, Esch said. The county hires referees to review protests. People can choose to meet with a referee. Those taxpayers who elect to do so will be contacted to make an appointment. Because of courthouse renovations, meetings with referees will not be held on the Farnham Street level of the city-county building. People meeting with referees should check in on the legislative chambers level up the escalators from the main entrance to the building at 1819 Farnham Street. Paul?
Well, it's 10:41 and we'll switch over to the obituary page. The obituaries are brought to you today by SEI Medical Alert. Medical Alert monitoring 24/7, 365 at the push of a button. SEI, your local medical alert provider. Call 402-333-3233 or visit seimedicalalert.com for more information. And these obituaries will be from the Lincoln Journal-Star. Ballas, Stephen Ballas Jr., age 82. No other information is available at the present time. Ellison, Orville Ellison, age 97. Again, no other information is available. Goodwin, Larry Goodwin, age 83. Additional information will be forthcoming. Johnson, Joanne Johnson, age 75. Graveside service will be held at 10 a.m. Thursday, May 18th at the Lincoln Memorial Park. Please meet at gate 2. Lincoln Funeral Home is handling these arrangements. Castle, Francis Castle, age 93 of David City. Funeral Mass will be held at 10 a.m. Thursday at St. John's Church in Prague. Shermack Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Clement, Emil Clement, age 78 of Ulysses, the veteran. Mass will be held at 10 a.m. Friday, May 19th at Immaculate Conception Catholic Church. Graveside services at St. Mary's Catholic Cemetery in Ulysses. Memorials to the Dwight American Legion Post number 110, the Ulysses Volunteer Fire Department, or Ulysses Rural Fire Board. Zapka Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Meyer, Virginia Meyer, age 86 of Weeping Water. Graveside service will be at 11 a.m. Thursday, May 18th at Oakwood Cemetery in Weeping Water. Donations can be made to memorials to the Monarch on 78th in Lincoln, Weeping Water Library, or Donor's Choice. Heyman's Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Olschwager, Don Olschwager, OHLSCHWAGER, age 83, of Lincoln. Funeral will be held at 11 a.m. Thursday, May 18th at Zapka Funeral Home. The memorials are suggested to the family. Pierce. Arlen Pierce, age 78, of Lincoln. Funeral will be at 10 a.m. Friday, May 19th at Lincoln Church of Christ. Memorials to the Lincoln Church of Christ or Nebraska Youth Camp. Lincoln Funeral Home is handling the arrangements. Schoenecker, Darlene Schoenecker, age 90, of Tecumseh. Additional information will be forthcoming. Soderquist, Gregory Soderquist, age 66, of Midland, Michigan. No other information is available. Spites, Evelyn Spites, age 97. Funeral service will be held at 1 p.m. Friday, May 19th at Mount Zion Baptist Church. Memorials may be given to Mount Zion Baptist Church. Metcalf Funeral Home is in charge of the arrangements. And finally, Jacqueline Roberts, age 20, of Lincoln. A Mass of Christian burial will be held at 11 a.m. Friday, May 19th at St. John the Apostle Catholic Church on Vine Street. Memorials may be directed to Boys Town or the YMCA. Lincoln Family Funeral Care is handling the arrangements. Rick?
From the Omaha World Herald, Anderson, Michael J. Anderson, age 56. Visitation will be held from 5 to 8 p.m. Friday, May 19th at the Bremen Mortuary Southwest Chapel. Saturday, May 20th at St. Stephen the Martyr Catholic Church. Interment will be at the Resurrection Cemetery. Memorials to Sporting Omaha FC or Midwest Melanoma Partnership. Bigley, Sarah E. Bigley, age 39. Rosary will be held 7 p.m. Thursday, May 18th. A funeral mass at 10:30 a.m. Friday, May 19th at St. Peter the Apostle Catholic Church in Schulte, Kansas. In lieu of flowers, memorials established with Rainbows United in Wichita, Kansas. Downing and Leahy Mortuary West is handling the services. Bledsoe, Jackie Bledsoe, age 82. Visitation will be Friday, May 19th from 5 to 7 p.m. with memorial service at 7 p.m. at the Bethany Funeral Home, 82nd and Harrison Street. Memorials requested to the American Heart Association or Omaha Astronomical Society. Bosca, Dr. Michael Douglas Bosca, age 59, of Glenwood, Iowa. A celebration of life will be held Friday, May 19th at 11 a.m. at the Malvern Community Building, 501 Main Street in Malvern, Iowa. Interment will be at a later date. Memorial fund is established for Dr. Michael Bosca at Glenwood State Bank in Glenwood, Iowa. Brady, John R. Jack Brady, age 92. He was a veteran. Mass of Christian burial will be held Wednesday, May 17th at 10 a.m. at St. Leo the Great Catholic Church. Interment at the Calvary Cemetery with military honors by VFW Post 247. Efi Hoffman Dory Cutler is handling the service. Brown, Patricia Ruth Brown, age 80. Visitation will be held Thursday, 5 to 7 p.m. The funeral service Friday, 11 a.m., all at the Roeder Mortuary, 108th Street Chapel. Bruins, Robert Anthony Bruins Jr., age 85. A Mass of Christian burial will be held at 1:20 p.m. Thursday. Visitation from 12 to 1 p.m. with rosary at 1 p.m., all at St. Cecilia Cathedral. Interment at Forest Lawn Cemetery with military honors. Forest Lawn Funeral Home is handling the services. Raydell Jr., Raydell Cordell Zip Jr., age 61. The celebratory services will continue on Friday at 10 a.m. at the Salem Baptist Church, located at 3131 Lake Street. Repasts will immediately follow the service at the Omaha Firefighters Union at 60th and Grover Streets in Omaha. Online condolences, www.forestlawnomaha.com. Dawson, Bonnie D. Durham Dawson, age 82. Bonnie Lee Dawson will be honored by the 2017 Omaha Bar Association Memorial Program Friday, May the 19th, 2017. No other information is available. Drake, Eva Marie Goman Drake, age 91. Visitation will be held Wednesday, May 17th from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Brayman Mortuary Southwest Chapel. Celebration of Eva's life Thursday, May 18th at 10 a.m. also at the Brayman Mortuary Southwest Chapel. Interment in Forest Lawn. Dyson, Abby Dyson, age 85 of Bellevue. Memorial service will be at 11 a.m. on Saturday, May 20th at the Les Hills Funeral Home in Carson, Iowa. A private family interment will be held. Memorials are directed to the family. Estabrook, Robert J. Estabrook, age 92. He was a veteran. Celebration of life. The family welcomes friends to join them at Happy Hollow Country Club between 5 to 7 p.m. on Thursday, May 18th for a celebration of Bob's life. Dressed as casual. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the charity of your choice. Iman, Betty M. Iman, age 97. Services will be held Wednesday, May 17th at 11 a.m. at the Bel Air Chapel of P.P. Hoffman, Doric, and Cutler. Interment in the Evergreen Memorials. Memorials may be directed by the family for donations to charity later. Gould, Lee M. Gould, age 67. Complete notice will be issued later. Halsey, Benny Halsey, age 72. Services will be held Thursday, May 18th at 10:30 a.m. at the Good Shepherd Funeral Home. Memorials to Matt Talbot Kitchen in Lincoln, Nebraska. Good Shepherd Funeral Home is handling the services. Huff, Deanna L. Huff, age 59. Visitation will be Thursday from 5 to 8 p.m. at the Bethany Funeral Home. Funeral service Friday, 11 a.m. at Beautiful Savior Lutheran Church. In lieu of flowers, memorials requested to family to establish the Ms. D. Memorial Scholarship, which will go to continue to promote reading for the children in the Ralston school districts. Hughes, Kathleen B. Hughes, age 76. Wake service will be held Thursday, May 18th at 7:30 p.m. at the Bel Air Chapel of P.P. Hoffman, Doric, and Cutler, with families receiving friends from 5:30 to 6:30. Services Friday, May 19th, 10:30 a.m. also at the Bel Air Chapel to Mary Our Queen at 11 a.m. for Mass of Christian Burial. Interment in the Calvary Cemetery. Memorials are suggested to Heartland Chapter of Scleroderma Foundation. Krause, Jerry A. Krause, age 89. Memorial service will be Wednesday at 11 a.m. at Faith Westwood United Methodist Church. Crosby, Burkett, Swanson, Golden is handling the services. In lieu of flowers, please make donations to the American Legion Millard Post, Disabled American Veterans, or the Boy Scouts of America. Kressel, Barbara Dolores Kressel, age 82. Memorial services will be conducted at 10 a.m. Saturday, May 20th at Glad Tidings Church on Hickory Street in Omaha. The graveside service will be conducted at Calvary Cemetery, followed by lunch. In lieu of flowers, memorials may be made to the American Cancer Society in Washington, D.C., or Hospice of the Valley Fund Development in Phoenix, Arizona. Lawver, Kathleen M. Lawver, age 67. Visitation begins Thursday, 10:30 a.m., with a memorial service at 11:30 a.m. at the Coriska Larkin Staskowitz Mortuary. Memorials to the Nebraska Humane Society. Manhart, John Nicholas Manhart, age 87. He was a veteran. Mass of Christian Burial at 10:30 a.m. Interment at the Calvary Cemetery with military honors by American Legion Post 331 and the U.S. Navy Reserve Honor Guard. Memorials to Our Lady of Lourdes Catholic Church, St. Margaret Mary Catholic Church, or as directed by the family. P.P. Hoffman, Doric, Cutler is handling the services. Manvitz, Justin Judd Manvitz, age 97. Services will be held Thursday, 11 a.m. at the Temple Israel, 13111 Sterling Ridge Drive. private interment at the Bethel Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, memorials to your favorite charity. John A. Gentleman Mortuaries is handling the services. Meyer, Carol Ann Rice Meyer, age 81. The family will receive friends Wednesday, May 17th from 6:30 to 8 p.m. at Presbyterian Church of the Master. Memorial service Thursday, May 18th at 11 a.m. Presbyterian Church of the Master. In lieu of flowers, memorials to Helfer International, one of her favorite charities. O'Doherty, Bernard D. O'Doherty, age 93. He was a veteran. Mass of Christian burial Thursday, May 18th at 10:30 at the St. Margaret Mary Catholic Church. Private interment at Calvary Cemetery with military honors by the Benson VFW Post 2503. Ostrom, Carl R. Ostrom, age 81. He was a veteran. Visitation 5 to 7 p.m. at 108th Street Chapel of Roeder Mortuary. On Thursday, May 18th at St. Augustana Lutheran Church in Lafayette Avenue in Omaha. Interment Friday, 9 a.m. at Forest Lawn Cemetery in Omaha. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the Augustana Lutheran Church or the Alzheimer's Association. Palladino, Frank H. Sonny Palladino, age 76. Visitation Thursday, May 18th from 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. with vigil service at 7 p.m. at the Bel Air Chapel of Fifi Hoffman Doric Cutler. Memorial Mass will be held Friday, May 19th at 11 a.m. at the St. Robert Bellarmine Catholic Church. Memorials to raise the roof fund at St. Mary Magdalene Catholic Church. Schmitz, Alvin J. Schmitz, age 90, he was a veteran. Visitation begins Wednesday, 9 a.m. with funeral service at 10 a.m. at the mortuary, Corisco Larkin Staskowich Funeral Home. In lieu of flowers, donations suggested to the Alzheimer's Association. Military honors by the American Legion Post 331. Seldman, David Seldman, age 64. No visitation. A celebration of life service. Join the family for food and drinks in celebration of David's life on Saturday, June 10th at 2 p.m. at our home. RSVP at dmseidman@msn.com. Private interment, memorials suggested to Humane Society Organization or the Cancer Organization. Simpson, Arlene M. Simpson, age 93. A complete notice will be issued later. Truckee, Rose M. Truckee, age 92. Services on May 20th. The family extends its deep appreciation to the Omaha, Nebraska medical care community, and in particular to Azria Health Montclair staff, Kindred Hospital, for their compassionate patient care. Family support. In lieu of flowers, memorials to the National Alzheimer's Association. Williams, Nona L. Williams, age 99. Visitation Thursday, 9 to 10 a.m. with funeral service at 10 a.m. all at Roeder Mortuary, Ames Chapel. Interment at the Mount Hope Cemetery. Wrightsman, Kenton Ray Wrightsman, age 74. Visitation 1 hour prior to the service. Funeral service will be held Friday at 2 p.m. at Temple Baptist Church. Interment at the West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home. In lieu of flowers, memorials sent in care of the family will be used for missionary work. West Lawn Hillcrest Funeral Home is handling the service. Zurich, Shirley Jane Zurich, age 86. Mass of Christian burial will be held Wednesday, May 17th at 11 a.m. at St. Thomas More Catholic Church. Interment at St. John Cemetery in Bellevue. Memorials to the St. Thomas More Education Endowment Fund or the Miles Patrick Mick Memorial Home. Listener memorials to the Radio Talking Book Network are tax deductible and go a long way in keeping Radio Talking Book on the air. Please keep Radio Talking Book in mind when memorials are listed as donor's choice or your favorite charity. Donations should be sent to the Radio Talking Book Network, 7101 Newport Avenue, Suite 205, Omaha, Nebraska 68152. Thank you for being a Radio Talking Book Network listener and supporter.
Yeah. It's going to be nice when they can get that fixed.
I hear a voice in there. Because something's playing.
Yeah, I think when he goes over there, he's chewing something.
Hello.
Hello, Paul.
Right after this recorded announcement, I'll do a quick station break and we'll be back to you.
Okay, I'll watch you.
Okay.
You want to go first?
Yeah. Go ahead. And this is Paul Murphy, returning reading articles from the Lincoln Journal Star, and it's 11:02, so we'll jump over to the editorial page. I will be reading an article from the editorial section. This is piggybacking on an article I previously had read. Tomorrow is the annual Give to Lincoln Day, and we encourage those across Lancaster County and beyond to be generous. This year marks the 6th year of the one-day donation blitz, which has raised more than $12 million for Lincoln and Lancaster County nonprofits since its inception. Net gifts have more than doubled since the event debuted in 2012 with $1.3 million raised. And in that time, this celebration and resultant generosity have only continued to grow. Of the millions raised, more than half, about $6.34 million, came in the last 2 years alone. This year's iteration features 365 charities and nonprofits, up nearly 5% from 348 in 2016. The 2017 Give to Lincoln Day also features a record match of $350,000. That pool of money is divided proportionally among the groups taking part in the event based on how much they raise. The more donations they receive, the larger the slice of the pie. If that isn't enough to move the needle for you, consider the scope and reach of the nonprofits listed at givetolincoln.com. With that vast number and variety of participating organizations, Lancaster County certainly has an agency whose mission you can support. Whether you're interested in contributing to the mission of a group serving the homeless, those with disabilities, students, musicians, historians, animals, or any others, at least one nonprofit on the list certainly appeals to anyone. Each of these groups has a story to tell, one that takes up far more space than is available in this column. But your donation, whether large or small, helps make these agencies' dreams of a better Lincoln and Lancaster County into realities. To pull in more than $3 million in donations in consecutive years is significant, but the vast majority of those gifts are small. That aggregate dollar amount shouldn't scare off prospective donors. Instead, it should inspire even more gifts. The minimum donation is $10, and many more Lincoln residents will give that figure to one or more nonprofits than the maximum of $10,000. The end result, an annual message for Give to Lincoln Day, is a testament to how small donations can add up to have a big impact. Lincoln, tomorrow is your chance to do just that, to make a better city and county for yourself and all residents. Seize that opportunity. Rick?
Commentary section of the Omaha World Herald opinion page. Last living Nuremberg prosecutor tells what he learned. Picture yourself at age 27. How do you and your accomplishments compare to those of young Ben Ferencz? In 1947, Ferencz was a prosecutor at the Nuremberg war crimes trials, bringing to account 22 Nazi SS commanders for the murders of more than 1 million innocent people. Now, picture yourself at 97 if you can, but make it a fiercely passionate and brilliant 97 years old. This is Ferencz today, still fighting the good fight against evil as the last surviving Nuremberg prosecutor 70 years later. More than an old U.S. Army vet telling his story, the Eastern European-born Ferencz uses his unique link to World War II history to advocate for peace, morality, and justice. His idealistic vision is that someday humans learn to settle political differences without arming themselves to kill and destroy. War invariably makes murderers out of otherwise decent people because that's the purpose of the war, Ferencz told CBC Radio this year. You kill him or he'll kill you. That's the system. My God, can't we think of anything better way to settle disputes? He's got no answer to that question yet. But Ferencz long ago placed hope in the lessons of the Nuremberg war crimes tribunals. He believes that a foundation of international law can govern wartime behavior to deter crimes against humanity. And he has spent his post-war career working to support this idea. To the extent that the International Criminal Court and other tribunals exist today, he has made progress, yet genocides still thrive. Cambodia, Rwanda, Bosnia, Darfur, arguably Syria. As an Army sergeant and Harvard law grad, Ferencz was among the troops who liberated Nazi death camps. What he saw shocked him, the death and degradation of prisoners, their bodies stacked like wood. 2 years later, he was back in Germany working for the Nuremberg tribunals when a researcher in Berlin uncovered documents showing how Nazi death squads were responsible for the systematic extermination of civilians in the former Soviet Union. These Einsatzgruppen, SS action groups, rolled into towns after German victories to slaughter Jews, gypsies, communist officials, and others. The Nazi documents told the story in meticulous detail. Ferencz added up the horrifying numbers: 55,000 Jews liquidated here, 91,600 executed there, until he'd reached a total of more than 1 million victims. The war crimes tribunals were underway, requiring Ferencz to persuade his superiors to add another trial. I said, look, I've got here mass murders on an unparalleled scale, he told Leslie Stahl of 60 Minutes. His opening statement at trial laid out the case. Reports will show that the slaughter committed by those defendants was dictated not by military necessity, but by supreme perversion of thought. The Nazi theory of the master race. We shall show that these deeds of men in uniform with a methodical execution of long-range plans to destroy ethnic, national, political, and religious groups which stood condemned in the Nazi mind. The Germans' paperwork was so detailed, Ferencz never had to call a witness. All 22 defendants were found guilty, 4 were hanged. War is a horror and may be perpetual, but as Ben Ferencz showed, evil committed in the guise of war is intolerable and punishable. Paul?
Amen. This letter to the editor, after Representative Jeff Fortenberry voted to pass a bill to replace the ACA He wrote a letter to his constituents purporting to explain his vote. In it, he said that he had only one choice, yes or no. Doing nothing is irresponsible. Yet this so-called explanation is suspicious. A no vote is not doing nothing. A no vote would have meant he thought it responsible to wait for a score from the Congressional Budget Office. A no vote would have meant he thought it responsible to address the valid concerns and fears of his constituents that they will not be covered under this plan. A no vote would have meant he had considered the forecast showing that this plan would be especially devastating for Nebraska. A no vote would have meant he was committed to waiting for the House to put forth a plan that improves on the ACA, not one that gives tax cuts to the rich and slashes $880 billion from Medicaid. A no vote would have demonstrated courage in not blindly following his party at the expense of Nebraskans' health. The congressman may have only been able to vote yes or no, but we must not allow him to pretend that endorsing this premature and dangerous plan, as he did with his vote, is in any way responsible. This was written by Susan Dwyer of Lincoln. Rick?
In a column by William Barr, Comey took on too much authority. Having served as both Attorney General and Deputy Attorney General in the Justice Department, I had responsibility for supervising the FBI, working on virtually a daily basis with its senior leadership. From that experience, I came to understand how fortunate we are as a nation to have in the FBI the finest law enforcement organization in the world, one that is thoroughly professional and free of partisanship. I offer this perspective on President Donald Trump's removal of FBI Director James Comey. Comey is an extraordinarily gifted man who has contributed much during his many years of public service. Unfortunately, beginning in July, when he announced the outcome of the FBI investigation into Hillary Clinton's use of the private email server while Secretary of State, he crossed a line that is fundamental to the allocation of authority in the Justice Department. While the FBI carries out investigative work, the responsibility for supervising, directing, and ultimately determining the resolution of investigations is solely the province of the Justice Department's prosecutors. With an investigation as sensitive as the one involving Clinton, the ultimate decision-making is reserved to the Attorney General, or when the Attorney General is recused, the Deputy Attorney General. By unilaterally announcing his conclusions regarding how the matter should be resolved, Comey arrogated the Attorney General's authority to himself. It is true that Attorney General Loretta Lynch, after her tarmac meeting with Bill Clinton, had left a vacuum by neither formally recusing herself nor exercising supervision over the case. But the remedy for that was for Comey to present his factual findings to the Deputy Attorney General, not to exercise the prosecutorial power himself on a matter of such grave importance. Until Comey's testimony last week, I had assumed that Lynch had authorized Comey to act unilaterally. It is now clear that the department's leadership was sandbagged. Paul?
Well, continuing in that thought, a little different vein, this was written by Dana Milbank. Rod Rosenstein, save yourself. For years, the man who just became the #2 official in the Justice Department painstakingly built a reputation as a gifted prosecutor and an above-the-fray layman serving Democratic and Republican administrations alike. Now, just over 2 weeks into his new job, he has become a national joke. He has destroyed his credibility by giving cover and legitimacy to Trump's decision to fire FBI Director James Comey, the man overseeing the agency's probe of the Trump campaign's possible collusion with Russia in tilting the 2016 election Trump's way. The Washington Post reported that Rosenstein threatened to resign because the White House was turning him into a stooge. Others matched the Post report. But Rosenstein says, no, he made no such threat. So he, therefore, must be content in the work environment he just joined. In case he missed it, this is what we've seen from that administration in the past week. The White House press secretary, Sean Spiegel, hiding among the bushes on the White House North Lawn, demanding that journalists turn off their camera lights before he would speak to them about the Comey affair. Comey learning that he had been fired when he saw it on TV on a West Coast swing, he thought it was a prank. The White House offering a profusion of conflicting accounts about Comey's dismissal, culminating in Trump's contradicting his own aides by saying he would have fired Comey even if Rosenstein hadn't written that preposterous memo citing the Clinton email case. The White House blocking American reporters and photographers from covering Trump's meeting with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, but admitting a photographer from the Russian state news agency TASS, which published photos of the meeting. The president went on Twitter to attack again a Democratic senator for mischaracterizing his military service years ago and to renew his long-standing feud with Rosie O'Donnell. The very same president registering the approval of just 36% of the country in the new Quinnipiac University poll, when Americans were asked to volunteer a word that comes to mind when they think of Trump, the top answer was idiot. But the most surreal happening of the week was none of the above. It was the Wall Street Journal report that Rosenstein pressed White House counsel Don McGowan to correct what he felt was an inaccurate White House depiction of the events surrounding the FBI Director James Comey's firing. The Journal reported that Rosenstein left the impression that he couldn't work in an environment where facts weren't accurately reported. Rosenstein couldn't work in an environment where facts aren't accurately reported. And yet, he goes to work for the alternative fact president. Rosenstein is either the most naive man in town, or he's not the honest man we all thought him to be. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt and assume he has an inkling who was chewed up and spit out by the Trump White House, which commandeered his unsullied reputation to justify its Comey sacking and left his once vaunted standing in tatters. In that case, Rosenstein needs to wake up to the reality that he has been and continues to be used by Trump and his defenders to provide a veneer of legitimacy to his decision to eliminate the head of the Russian probe. Trump may now say he would have fired Comey anyway, but everybody else has used Rosenstein and his 3-page memo justifying Comey's dismissal as cover. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, Republican of Kentucky, Mr. Rosenstein recommended Mr. Comey's removal. Spicer, it was all him, no one from the White House. That was a DOJ decision. Senate Republican Conference Chairman John Thune, Republican from South Dakota, they decided to take this action based upon the recommendation from Rod Rosenstein, who had just been confirmed by the Senate 94-6 a couple of weeks ago, in a man who people have a tremendous amount of confidence in. Rosenstein now makes Comey look like Solomon. If he cares at all about rehabilitating the reputation he built, Rosenstein has one option. He can appoint a serious, independent, and above reproach special counsel, the sort of person Rosenstein was seen as until this week to continue the Russian probe. Rosenstein may never recover his honor, but this is his only chance. Rick?
Well, it's a little bit early, but I can't stand to read another article about James Comey, so we'll move on to today's living and entertainment. Breakfast. Cereal and other staples are called sugar bombs. When I was growing up in the late 1960s, Dad, who did the grocery shopping every Saturday morning, didn't think twice about putting Captain Crunch on the list, unless it was to ask if I wouldn't rather have Quisp. I didn't see cornflakes until I was in college, but by the time I was a parent, I had dutifully moved on to Special K and fed my toddlers Cheerios, 10% of which invariably crunched underfoot. The first two cereals, part of the sugar cereal boom that began in the 1950s, are nearly equal parts corn flour and sugar. But even my Special K is about 13% sugar. Cheerios comes in at the lowest, between 3 and 4%, but I wonder if sugar, the current nutrition bugaboo, even matters given that they're all composed mainly of processed grains. Is it possible that in most boxed breakfast cereals, an American staple found in up to 90% of American cupboards, a $10 billion industry might be equally bad for you, and especially so in the morning? Only recently, as Fat America seeks to understand the roots of its eating disorder, has the most important meal of the day dictum begun to be questioned in the media. It's probably more accurate to call breakfast the most dangerous meal of the day, not only because of the sugar in so many breakfast cereals, but also because the refined grains they're made of are virtually the same thing once they reach your bloodstream. For a book about grocery stores, I asked to go shopping with my physician, Roxanne Sukol, preventative medicine specialist at the Cleveland Clinic, medical director of its wellness enterprise, and something of a nutrition geek. They didn't teach us anything about nutrition in medical school, she told me. When we arrived at the breakfast cereal real estate, she pulled off a box of cereals off the shelf, one with a bowl shaped like a heart and a message stating it can lower cholesterol. The first ingredient is whole grain oats, Sukol said, reading the label. So far, so good. But the second ingredient is modified food starch, and the third is food starch. That's nonsense. That's just like corn syrup. The fourth ingredient was sugar, followed by salt, followed by an additive. I don't know what this is. Try potassium phosphate, but I'm pretty sure it's not food. It's disingenuous to call this a whole grain product, she concluded. All the cereal, whole grain or not, is processed in a way to give it indefinite shelf life. As the nutritious parts of our food are what goes bad on the shelf, just about every processed grain product on the shelf is nutritionally barren. Sukol walked me through the basic physiology. When sugar enters our bloodstream, the hormone insulin is released to deliver the sugar to its proper destination. If more sugar comes in than the insulin can transport, the sugar is stored as fat and the insulin system is strained, which can result in diabetes and other diet-related diseases. Sukol listed the insulin to a valet car service and the sugar to its cars it parks. If the guest's arrival is spread out, the valet service can handle them efficiently. If everyone shows up at once, cars get backed up. Same thing with sugar. What this has to do with breakfast is what refined wheat, rice, and corn, what most mainstream American breakfast cereals are primarily composed of, is quickly converted to sugar on entering your system, requiring that exact same insulin response. I'm not talking about the outliers, those unsweetened multi-grain cereals such as Ezekiel 4:9, or those like Love Grown that replace refined grains with beans. I'm talking about the vast majority of the cereal aisle. When you see someone spooning sugar onto a bowl of cornflakes or Cheerios, you should not see the act as sweetening, something that's good for you. You should see it as someone spooning sugar onto your sugar. Paul?
Well, this article is out of Los Angeles. Despite his jokes that he'll never get asked back after the historic envelope flub at this year's Academy Awards, Jimmy Kimmel is set to host the Oscars once more. The Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences on Tuesday said Kimmel will return for the 90th Oscars with producers Michael DeLuca and Jennifer Todd, the team behind this year's ceremony. If you think we screwed up the ending this year, wait until you see what we have planned for the 90th anniversary show, Kimmel said in the official announcement. It's an extremely early date to set the host for the 2018 ceremony. Kimmel was not announced as the host for the 2017 Oscars until December 2016, and previous year's host, Chris Rock, was announced the prior November. But Film Academy President Cheryl Boone Isaac told the Associated Press on Tuesday that they were so pleased with the team that they wanted to keep the momentum going for the 90th. It's a big year for us, Boone Isaac said. It's going to be a big celebration, and it's wonderful to have a team that's experienced and freshly experienced and already has some wonderful ideas. Ratings for the 89th Oscars this past February were the lowest since 2008, with 32.9 million viewers tuning in. However, even with the drama of the envelope gaffe, in which Faye Dunaway reading an incorrect card announced La La Land as the Best Picture winner. The snafu was corrected on stage, and Moonlight was given the award. Boone Isaacs acknowledged that dip in ratings is a little troubling, but she doesn't blame the team for the numbers. This show was extremely well reviewed, and we got so much positive feedback from the general public, as well as our members and certainly the board, who are very excited about what they delivered for us, she said. Boone Isaacs expects the movies to help bolster interest this year. Interest may be up too in the aftermath of the envelope situation, which resulted in heightened press coverage after the show, as well as immediate changes internally to ensure that it would never happen again. The changes, however, aren't likely to affect the producers or the host. That was more about accounting firm PwC and not the producers or the host, and we have addressed that issue. That envelope is closed, Boone Isaacs said. That was a very specific situation that was addressed right away, and now we'll just move on. New protocols for PwC, which took responsibility for the mistake, were implemented following the ceremony. Rick?
A review of the show from the Orpheum. Far from rotten, the show was actually quite fresh. Something Rotten was something, all right. It was a stitch with lots of sly humor. It was well acted by a talented cast, featuring some actors fresh from the Broadway production that closed earlier this year. The songs were catchy and clever, and the sets were colorful, elaborative, and evocative. It definitely wasn't rotten, though, unlike the hysterical show within a show created by its lead characters. The musical, which opened a 6-day engagement at the Orpheum Theater on Tuesday night, is a true original, both because it's not adapted from something such as television or film, and because it has a smart, innovative plot. It was refreshing to see a show so totally new. The story centers on two brothers who were writing partners in the 1950s. Nick Bottom, played by Rob McClure, is ambitious, aggressive, and no fan of rival William Shakespeare, played by Adam Pascal, who's portrayed as a rock star in the play. Instead of Shakespeare's traditional garb, he wears shiny silver and gold jackets and tight pants. Nigel Bottom, Josh Grissetti, is nervous, shy, and lacking in self-esteem, though he's the true wordsmith of the duo. They're tired of being poor. Nick especially feels bad because wife B, McClure's real-life wife, Maggie Lacus, must scrounge for food and wants to get a job to help out. If only they could have hit like Shakespeare. Nick turns to Thomas Nostradamus, played by Blake Hammond, for help. That's a vehicle for all sorts of gags. Much of the show's fun comes from figuring out the subtle and not so subtle references to musical theater over the years. McClure, Grissetti, and Pascal all played their characters on Broadway, and it shows. They've made them their own. And Hammond was particularly brilliant as the scrambled soothsayer. The brothers faced obstacles, including an effete Puritan preacher played by Scott Coate, whose daughter Portia, played by Autumn Hurlbut, with a lovely voice, is Nigel's love interest. Much of the music is rock-tinged, which, believe it or not, is perfect, even though it's the Renaissance. A couple of the tap dancing production numbers literally stopped the show for a few minutes as the audience cheered. The show's ensemble included Nebraskans Daniel Beeman and Con O'Shea Creel was top-notch. Song titles and lyrics, such as Willpower and Anthem to Shakespeare, Hard to be Barred, and Bottom's Gonna Be on Top, illustrate the whimsical writing. They even made the Black Plague funny. The show's book is by Kerry Kirkpatrick and John O'Farrell, and Kirkpatrick wrote lyrics for music written by his brother Wayne. Casey Nicolau was the director and choreographer. Omaha was one of the first stops on the tour, and there were a few opening night jitters, small things such as actors and crew being visible behind the scenery. Those glitches should be ironed out as the show settles in. Something Rotten ends the Omaha Performing Arts Broadway series season with lots of belly laughs. Paul?
Dear Amy, my husband and I have been married for more than 2 years. When we first started dating, I knew he smoked marijuana daily. I slowly grew frustrated being with someone who is out of it and unresponsive. I decided to break it off. He then decided, without my suggestion, that he would stop smoking. There were many times where I was suspicious that he was smoking again. Excuse me. He had bloodshot eyes, smelled of it, would run errands that took hours to complete, etc. But I just pushed it to the back of my mind and tried to be happy. Shortly after we got married, I caught him smoking with a friend when he had told me he was somewhere else. I felt so disappointed, but I forgave him. Amy, I don't care if people want to smoke weed, but it is something I didn't want in a husband or the future father of my children. Last night, I was cleaning his car when I found weed hidden underneath the floor mat. I also found eye drops and a lighter. We talked about it, and he told me that he feels like weed helps him. He believes it has healing powers. He has no medical issues. He doesn't want to stop. I was very clear about my views from the start of our relationship. It isn't fair that he lied to me for so long. I told him I wanted a divorce because I could no longer trust him. He said I was crazy for being willing to throw everything away over a little weed. I don't know what to do. I feel like it isn't even about the weed now. It's about the betrayal, lies, and the intentional hiding. Am I crazy for wanting a divorce over weed? Disappointed. Dear disappointed. I gather from where your husband's stash was located that pot is illegal in your state. So if it is reasonable to ask and expect your spouse not to engage in illegal activity. But if pot were illegal where you live, would you find it acceptable if he used it occasionally? And importantly, would it be able to use it only occasionally? His habit of hiding this from you might have triggered some binging behavior. Would he be able to use pot the way some of us have a glass of wine with a meal and enjoy it without getting stoned? People who use weed and get baked will deny how obnoxious and boring they can be and how big an impact it has on their lives and relationships. It is no fun to try to have a life with someone who is unavailable, unreliable, impaired, and zoned out. Your husband broke a vow he had made to you, and then he lied about it. If you look down the road and see nothing but more of this, then yes, you should probably leave. This is your version of 3 strikes. I'm out. Rick?
7 ways to make your window air conditioner work and look better. I have a love-hate relationship with my air conditioner. I hate living with it, and I can't live without it. I, like many who dwell in old apartment buildings and houses, muddle through the summer heat and humidity with window units that not only obstruct views and restrict access to natural light, but also give off a sound that makes you feel as though you're camping out on an airport tarmac. The noise is not surprising. The compressor sits right on your window with little more than some plastic and a few bits of metal encasing it. For these reasons, I hold off installing my units for as long as possible and remove them as quickly as possible. But over the years, I've figured out a few ways to make them work and look better. Wash your windows. Make sure you clean your windows before installing your air conditioning units. Once the unit is in, there's no way to clean both sides of the glass unless you live on the ground floor and can access the windows from outside. Even then, you wouldn't be able to clean the area where double-hung windows overlap. Level it off. Install your unit so it is level. If the unit tips downward, it could keep the condensation from draining properly out of the back or bottom. Go clear. Years ago, I replaced the accordion-style insulation panels that come with my air conditioner with clear plexiglass. This makes a world of difference. I was able to reclaim about 2 feet of natural light in each window. You can buy plexiglass sheets at most hardware stores, measure the open gaps, score the dimensions on both sides of the plexiglass, leave the protective cover on while you do this, with a glass cutter or the dull side of a box cutter, and then just snap the pieces off. Remove the protective cover and secure the plexiglass pieces with screws to the window sash and bottom rail. Fill the gaps. No matter how efficient your air conditioner is, the cool air will leak out of your house if you don't have it properly sealed, and you will end up with higher electricity bills. Make sure you fill the gaps between the frame of the lower sash and the window and the upper sash, as well as the cracks around the side panels. Duck brand makes a number of products: air conditioner insulating seal, all-weather repair tape, and heavy-duty weather strip seals that you can cut to size and use to seal gaps. Filling gaps can also cut down on noise. A gap between the air conditioner's frame and the sash, or between the glass and the frame, can cause annoying vibrating or rattling sound. Clean the filters. Cleaning your unit's filters is easy to do. It's also easy to forget to do. I try to clean mine every Sunday. Most people say that you can do it every other week, but I find pollen, dust, and dirt buildup, and that can't be good for anyone. Follow the manufacturer's instructions to open the front of your unit and remove the filter. I vacuum away as much of the grime as I can, then rinse the filter in warm, soapy water. Once the filter is dry, place it back in the unit. I put a small red Sharpie dot in the top corner of the filter, so I always know which side of the filter should face out. Clean the coils. The unit's coils move the hot air out and cool air in, and they too attract dirt and dust. I use an old toothbrush to gently clear away as much dirt as possible. I then use an old cloth dipped in warm soapy water to remove excess dirt. Make sure you let all the parts dry completely before you turn the unit on. And finally, help keep it cool. It may seem obvious, but keep your curtains drawn, your shades down, and your windows closed during hot summer days so the cool air stays in and the hot air stays out. Paul?
Blues guitar wizard John Bonamassa is already booked for Pinewood Bowl later this summer, August 20th. A month after he headlines there, the Rococo Theater will bring the bluesy voice that's powered several collaborative albums with Bonamassa to Lincoln. Singer-songwriter Beth Hart will be playing the Rococo on September 21st. Together, she and Bonamassa teamed up on the albums Don't Explain, Seesaw, and Alive in Amsterdam. Her latest releases are solo ventures Better Than Home and Fire on the Floor. With both the team ups and solo releases, Hart has reached the top of the blues charts and been recognized with a Grammy nomination for Best Blues Album for Seesaw with Bonamassa. That's but one of the collaborations that Hart, who first charted big play song Out of This Town, has had with top guitarist. Her performances, described by The Guardian as daring, brooding, and angry, have led to collaborations with recent lead center headliner Buddy Guy, as well as Jeff Beck and Slash. Hart's bringing her own band with her in support of her latest release, Fire on the Floor, which she's described as pretty frickin' good. Tickets range from $35 to $75 plus fees and go on sale May 19th at 10 a.m. and can be purchased at the rococotheater.com.
How to request a restaurant's recipe and other food queries. Question: what is the etiquette for asking restaurants for recipes? For example, I loved the kale at a local restaurant, but it's not on the menu right now. I'd love to make it at home. I know there are differences in large and small scale cooking, but I think if I could get a list of the ingredients in the process, I could come up with something. Is it okay to ask? How does that work? A. Answer: chefs and restaurants are used to getting recipe requests these days and will typically comply with pleasure. It will help if you can be specific, perhaps in a follow-up email with how many servings you're interested in. Be aware that measurements most likely will be listed by weight, and there might be some ingredient that may be difficult to find. If the last bit is true, a request for a substitute ingredient may be in order. Question: I receive a sous vide cooker as a present, and I have been looking at recipes to try out. Most that I have seen tell you the temperature you need to set as well as the cooking time. However, it is not clear whether you have to let the water reach that temperature before placing the food in the water, or if the cooking time includes the warm-up. Is there a general rule for this, or does it depend on the recipe? When you're cooking sous vide, you shouldn't start the clock on your cook time until the water is up to the temperature. Many sous vide recipes give you a wide range for timing, say 1 to 5 hours for a steak. You have to hit the minimum amount of time at the indicated temperature for the food to be cooked. Another thing, the food must be completely submerged. After you hit the temperature and minimum time, your food is done, though you can leave it on longer. It can't overcook as long as the water temperature remains the same. Question: we have a neighborhood potluck dinner coming up where the host has planned an Italian main course. We volunteered to bring an appetizer and a dessert. Both need to be gluten-free. Do you have any suggestions? For the appetizers, we were thinking maybe a prosciutto and melon combination, but we aren't sure about a gluten-free Italian dessert. Are gelati difficult to make? Prosciutto and lemon sounds nice for an appetizer, easy to make, handheld, and should last pretty well. Gelati aren't hard to make if you have basic ice cream skills and equipment, but it might be a challenge to make enough and to keep it from melting. I think a gluten-free Italian cookie would be great. Some to look for at washingtonpost.com/recipes, Sardinian almond cookies, amaretto cookies, and Anna Stellata Spignoli. Paul?
Well, it's 11:40 and we'll switch over to business and markets. Employees increasingly are testing positive for marijuana, cocaine, and meth at work, driving the rates of positive drug tests in the United States to the highest level in 12 years. Quest Diagnostics, a leading lab services company based in Madison, New Jersey, on Tuesday released its annual analysis of more than 10 million workforce drug test results nationwide. It showed that 4.2% of drug tests came back positive last year, up from 4% the year before, and the highest rate since 2004 when it was 4.5%. Nebraska's positive drug test rate was 3.6%, below the national average and more than all but about a half dozen states. Nebraska also had positive rates below the national average in each individual drug category, although positive tests for PCP nearly matched the national rate. The rate of positive drug tests in the nation's workforce remains far lower than the nearly 14% positive rate the United States faced when Quest started the annual report in 1988. It's pretty alarming, said Dr. David Fletcher, a medical review officer and founder of SafeWorks Illinois in Champaign, which analyzes drug tests for employers and was not involved in the analysis. Quest statistics reflect what he sees in his practice, he said. Driving the increase are positive tests for marijuana, which hit 2% last year after growing steadily from about 1.6% in 2012. For workers federally mandated to be tested because they hold safety-sensitive positions, such as pilots and bus and truck drivers, positive marijuana tests grew to 0.78 from 0.73%. Rick?
Uninsured rate stalls amid ACA uncertainty. 5 years of progress reducing the number of Americans without health insurance has come to a halt, according to a government report out Tuesday. More than a factoid, it shows the stakes in the Republican drive to roll back the Affordable Care Act. The report from the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention estimates that 28.6 million people were uninsured in 2016, unchanged from 2015. It was the first year since passage of the healthcare overhaul in 2010 that the number of uninsured did not budge. The uninsured rate for 2016 was 9%, an insignificant difference from 9.1% the previous year. When former President Barack Obama signed the ACA in 2010, the uninsured rate had been 16%. Tuesday's report suggests that the ACA was running low on gas in Obama's final year as president. Premiums for private insurance were about to jump, and 19 states continued to refuse the law's Medicaid expansion. Now the number of uninsured could start climbing again under policies being considered by President Donald Trump and congressional Republicans. The politically unpopular GOP bill, passed narrowly by the House, would limit Medicaid financing and curtail subsidies for many consumers buying their own private policies. Republicans also would repeal the requirement that most Americans carry health insurance or risk fines, a much disliked nudge to get healthy people covered. The legislation would lead to an estimated increase of 24 million uninsured people within 10 years, according to congressional analysis. Under Obamacare, there are 20 million fewer uninsured since 2010. It's disappointing that it's stalled out, said health economist Gail Walensky, a Republican. The real question is, will we be able to keep the gains that we have made? Critical of the ACA and co-author of any alternative plan by GOP policy experts, Walensky nonetheless supports the goal of expanding coverage. She's concerned about the impact of the House bill on Medicaid, the federal state program for low-income and disabled people. The new numbers come from CDC's National Health Interview Survey, which is considered an authoritative source, and publishes findings earlier than the Census Bureau. Estimates for 2016 were based on data from nearly 97,000 people. It looks like we were kind of sticking a landing and holding on to the gains, said Catherine Hempstead, who directs research on health insurance at the nonpartisan Robert Wood Johnson Foundation. To increase coverage, you would have to see more states take up the Medicaid expansion and some reforms to increase take-up in the individual private market. Paul?
Warren Buffett's company added to its sizable new investments in major airlines during the first quarter and eliminated a stake in 21st Century Fox. Berkshire Hathaway filed an update on the U.S. stocks it held at the end of March with the Securities and Exchange Commission on Monday. Buffett had already disclosed in recent interviews that Berkshire sold off 1/3 of its 81 million IBM shares and bought about 133 million Apple shares. The filing showed Berkshire added to its investment in American, Delta, and Southwest Airlines in the quarter. Its United Continental stake was unchanged. Berkshire sold off nearly 9 million shares in 21st Century Fox. Rick?
In sports, at the semifinal loss calls for a change. It never stops at Ohio State. The Buckeyes' relentless, dogged pursuit of football championships and high-level performances can leave opponents dizzy. Going 61-6 in 5 years isn't good enough for Coach Urban Meyer. Winning one national championship when a couple of others were in reach isn't good enough. And losing 31-10 to eventual national championship champion Clemson in a college playoff semifinal wasn't last December 31st, definitely isn't good enough. So in the 11 days following the shutout, OSU co-offensive coordinators Tim Beck, the former Nebraska coordinator, and Ed Warner sought employment elsewhere, and Meyer hired a replacement. Former Indiana coach Kevin Wilson. For his 6 years with the Hoosiers, Wilson had 16 years of coordinator experience and is one of the country's most respected offensive minds. At Northwestern, the power spread attack he helped devise allowed the Wildcats to lead the Big Ten in rushing for the first time in 54 years. At Oklahoma, his 2008 team set a then NCAA record by scoring 716 points, including 62 on Nebraska. Overall, only 4 offenses in NCAA history have had a 3,500-yard passer, 2 1,000-yard rushers, and a 1,000-yard receiver in one season. 2 of those belong to Wilson, OU in 2008 and Indiana in 2015. Yet to many, Wilson would have been too hot to handle. Indiana ousted him in December despite a recent contract extension and reports of his callous handling of injured players and verbal abuse of players and trainers. Meyer knows Wilson and knows he hated to play against Wilson's Hoosiers, so he and Ohio State Athletic Director Gene Smith explored the situation. Paul?
The issue of Friday night football coming to the Big Ten, even on a limited basis, continues to produce debate with enough opposition to it that league athletic directors and leaders met early this week with high school sports administrators to discuss the matter. With the Huskers set to play one such Friday night game at Illinois this year on September 29th, and the very real possibility Nebraska could host another Friday night game either in 2018 or 19, the topic is on the mind of some NU fans too. When Nebraska Athletic Director Sean Eichhardt and Coach Mike Riley conducted their state tour last week, one fan in McCook asked if the Huskers plan to continue to go along with the Big Ten Friday night package, while some schools, Michigan and Penn State, have put on a wall to the idea of hosting games that night. From a Nebraska perspective, what we've asked is to be a participant in a very limited basis, Eichhardt said. He listed some reasons Michigan and Penn State had given for not wanting involvement before adding, that's their perspective. Our perspective was, we're an American team, so we want to be on national television as much as possible. We've also worked closely with our high school association to figure out what balance, if we were to play on Friday night game at home, and making sure that we're not jumping in their space too much. In Michigan's case, the Wolverines brass has said it supports the Big Ten scheduling plans, but felt the distance of travel for large parts of their fan base made hosting a Friday night game a difficult task. According to figures that Michigan Athletic Department produced to mlive.com, 83% of its season ticket holders live outside the Ann Arbor's county. That accounts for about 60,000 people traveling to each Michigan game. Penn State, meanwhile, agreed to play in one Friday night road game a year, but balked at the idea of hosting such games in Beaver Stadium. Penn State's original statement on the matter: there are a variety of reasons why. Among them, we know how important Friday night high school football is to hundreds of communities across the state. In addition, we have considered the impact that a Friday night home football game would have on key community stakeholders. Resistance didn't stop there. There were originally 6 Big Ten games slated for Friday nights this year. Nebraska's routine appearance on Black Friday not counting. Now there are just 4. Northwestern, which had been scheduled to play 2 Friday night games, now won't play any in 2017. The Wildcats were to play on October 13th at Maryland and host Michigan State on October 27th. Both games are now on Saturdays after Northwestern officials pushed back. A Big Ten source told the Chicago Tribune it had heard from university leadership at Northwestern about unintended consequences that accompany Friday night games. Rick?
East's top seed is the underdog, and that's fine with them. From Boston, the Celtics are heading to the Eastern Conference Finals with the number 1 seed and home court advantage, but they're still very much underdogs to the defending champion Cleveland Cavaliers. That's because throughout the season, the conversation hasn't been so much about which team would come out of the East as much as how much resistance any team could offer the Cavs. So far, it hasn't been much, with Cleveland posting back-to-back sweeps in the first 2 rounds. After waiting more than a week for an opponent, the Cavs have their latest challenger. It's a Boston team that many wrote off after the Celtics fell into an 0-2 hole against the Bulls in the first round. Now, fresh off a Game 7 semifinal win over the Washington Wizards, the Celtics in many ways find themselves playing with house money as they prepare to host a LeBron James-led Cleveland team, carrying all the expectations into Wednesday's Game 1 in Boston. We've been counted out since I've been here, so it's nothing new, Celtics guard Isaiah Thomas said. We're not really focused on the outside noise and what we think they're going to. Then we're just going to take care of business as we go. That's easier said than done. Boston has yet to beat the Cavs this season with Cleveland at full strength. The Celtics' lone victory came on March 1st with Kevin Love out after minor left knee surgery. Cleveland won the other games by a combined 35 points, including a 114-91 romp on April 5th. Still, James respects not only the Celtics, but also their hallowed history. There's only two winningest franchises in the history of the game, the Lakers and the Celtics, James said. Just respect that and look out up in the stands and see the banners, see the jerseys retired and things of that nature. You respect that history has created at that point. Thomas has spoken several times this postseason about wanting to experience the make or break moments that only the playoffs can provide. He has his chance against a team that both he and Coach Brad Stevens have acknowledged is better than it was even in April. Paul?
This article out of New York: the Boston Celtics have won the NBA draft lottery, capitalizing on a trade they made with the Brooklyn Nets 4 years ago. The Los Angeles Lakers were other big winners, moving up 1 spot to second to hold onto their pick. They would have had to trade it to Philadelphia if it fell outside the top 3. The Celtics will go from number 1 seed to number 1 pick after their 25% chance of winning came through Tuesday night. They beat Washington in Game 7 of the second round on Monday and opened the Eastern Conference Finals at home on Wednesday against Cleveland. It's two completely different situations. One is a lot about the future, and one is in the present. Celtics president Danny Ainge said, "This team is a lot of fun to be around this year." Brooklyn finished with the worst record in the league, but the Celtics had the right to swap picks with them from the 2013 draft night trade that sent Kevin Garnett and Paul Pierce to the Nets. The 76ers will pick third, while Phoenix fell 2 spots and is fourth. I'm excited, 76 rookie center Joel Embiid said, "We've jumped up one more spot. I wish we would have gotten the number 1 pick, but we trust the process, and it's going to be exciting to see what we're going for." The Celtics were going to be in prime position no matter how the ping pong balls bounced in the hotel ballroom Tuesday. They were guaranteed no worse than number 4 pick to add to a team that had the best record in the East this season. And they still get one more first-round pick next season from the Nets, who likely will miss the playoffs again. Boston acquired the Nets' 2014, 16, and 18 first-round picks in the deal. Rick?
In Oregon football, one of our opponents next year, Ducks taking a different approach. During the early part of spring practice, new Oregon coach Willie Taggart was asked what's different about his staff's approach to coaching compared with the staff of his predecessor, Mark Helfrich. Everything, Taggart said. Then he clarified, "We probably do a lot of the same things, but we do them differently," Taggart said at a press conference in April. "I can't remember anyone saying, 'Oh, we've done that before. That's how we did it before. It's all been different or longer or taught differently.' It's a standard question asked of most new coaches, and Taggart gave a predictable answer. Each coach carries around a culture bubble, and once inside it, players can tell the difference, however subtle, of its atmosphere. But at Oregon, the question and answer carry more weight. For Oregon's identity, it was once perhaps the best known in the sport, and not just because of all the Nike uniform combinations. As personified by their introverted, wonkish head coaches Chip Kelly and Helfrich, Oregon was the thinking man's college football program, precise, analytical, secretive, a little autocratic and foreboding, the merging of science and pigskin. UO's football building was nicknamed the Death Star for a reason. Developed by Kelly, who won 46 games in 4 years before an NCAA investigation ran him off to the NFL, the Ducks' signature was a no-huddle, fast-paced, run-centric offense that racked up video game numbers and attracted skilled players by the truckload. In 2014, the Ducks and Helfrich were steaming toward a national championship berth behind Heisman Trophy winner Marcus Mariota. Kelly was in the midst of his second 10-win season with the Philadelphia Eagles. Oregon's win-the-day mantra won a lot. Less than 3 years later, Kelly has been fired twice in the NFL, and Helfrich has been fired after Oregon's 4-8 season, which started to go south with the loss at Nebraska, when the Ducks, under Helfrich's insistence, attempted 5 two-point conversions, making 1. That was 4 nearly free extra points Helfrich turned down. His team lost by 3. Helfrich got so desperate, or perhaps wistful, last season that he admitted to ESPN Radio that he called Kelly and asked him to come back and coach the team. The functional equivalent would have been Nebraska's Frank Solich asking Tom Osborne to do the same thing in 2003. Paul?
Storms on Tuesday put a halt to the state baseball tournament in both classes. In all, only 2 of 6 scheduled games finished Tuesday. The 4 p.m. Class B elimination game between Lincoln Pius X and Elkhorn at Sherman Field was halted midway through the 7th inning. The Thunderbolts were leading the Antlers 5-1 before lightning crept closer to the area. The game will resume at 2:30 p.m. Wednesday at Haymarket Park. Tuesday's 7 p.m. Class B game were postponed and will be made up Wednesday. Norris will play Omaha Skutt in a winner's bracket game at 7 p.m. at Haymarket Park, after Arlington and Gretna play in an elimination game at 4 p.m. also at Haymarket Park. Tuesday, 7 p.m. Class A winners bracket game between Creighton Prep and Millard South, set to take place at Frisk Field in Papillion, also was postponed and will be played at 7 p.m. Wednesday at the same site. The postponement means Lincoln Southwest and Omaha West Side will get a day of rest following victories Tuesday. Southwest will play Creighton Prep at either 4 p.m. or 7 p.m. Thursday. Well, it's 11:59 and it's time for us to sign off. This has been Paul Murphy reading articles from the Lincoln Journal-Star.
Listen, this is Rick Miner reading from the Omaha World. Have a good week.
He's moving his mouth.
Where it was. May 25th, 2017.
Moving on. Head to the hospital and see my daughter.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Fortunately, Jeff's the only one that can go up to the prenatal section, so I don't know if he can take anybody or.
Kind of sneaky along.
Yeah.
Well, good luck
Well, thank you.
and congratulations.
Appreciate it very much. Thanks, Paul.